Okay, so this is called an amp profiler. And this is called an amp modeler. And this is an actual tube amp. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully quantify the sheer amount of changes that have happened in the guitar world over the last 15 to 20 years. Like when you look at just digital amp recording solutions or alternatives to an actual tube amp, they've come so far, and I've even done experiments by myself where I've thought to myself, listening back to an amp and an amp modeler, I can barely tell the difference depending on the scenario. And that gets me to an even deeper rabbit hole, because I think when we ask ourselves the big question, we often think it's going to be analog versus digital, but more recently I've been thinking to myself, I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Because there's so many options, I kind of think the big question that every guitar player will have to answer for themselves in the future will be, are you into amp modelers, are you into amp profilers, or are you into actual amps? And starting with the actual profilers, it's one of those interesting things where 6 months ago, yeah, and I know that's late because I've been playing guitar for 8 years, I had never really known what the term profiler meant. You see, I'd heard about the legendary Kempers, and I knew a bunch of professional guitar players, and they all said, every single one of them, all the time, I use a Kemper when I go on the road. And I thought that was cool because I thought that a Kemper was just this really cool amp modeler unit that gave you some crazy presets that people were able to get really, really close to an actual amp, and sometimes even be more effective depending on the scenario. But when I started looking into what actual profiling was and knowing that you can actually capture the sound of each individual amp and then bring it on the road with you, I realized that the possibilities kind of became endless. Like, what is this thing? You can actually take your amp with you in a digital unit? That's crazy. Now on the other end with modelers, you're given a few more strict parameters, but you're also able to just plug in and play. And usually modeled after a specific amp, they're usually very good at emulating that specific sound. And even nowadays, in seeing that there are a lot of analog amp modeler options. And then of course you have the actual amps, and I don't think I need to explain that much about that to anyone. It's a guitar amp, it's a Princeton, it sounds quite good on anything. So I decided it would be a good time to take kind of those different options to the test, like to see what would be the pros and cons and what would be the actual sound differences in profiling versus modeling versus an actual amp, and how would those work for the different players nowadays, because I really do think that's going to be the biggest question for a lot of people to answer. You see, about 4 months ago, I woke up at 6 a.m. one day randomly and drove to the airport because I wanted to see one of the 1,000 Marvel movies that came out with my friends. And I decided to go on YouTube while I'm in the airport just to see what's happening, just to kill some time. And everyone keeps posting about this unit that had just come out, and they keep labeling it the Kemper Killer, stuff like that. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I had just learned about profiling a couple months ago. What is this thing that everyone's talking about? The Tonex. He is our first player. We're going to be using the Princeton capture to actually see if it can keep up with the real Princeton. Our second participant, I remember Rhett Shull and Mateus Asado, two of the most respected guitarists in the YouTube community I've seen, two phenomenally talented artists. I remember seeing them go A-B with this specific unit and a classic Fender amp, and at sometimes not even be able to tell the difference. So we got our hands on a UA Dream 65. So let's get down to brass tacks. When it comes to profiling, I have a lot of friends who've told me before, I just don't deal with it. And I think a lot of the times that's simply because of the time it would take to profile an actual amp and not just have that plug and play unit. But with this unit right here really surprised me, especially with the tonal capabilities for the price range. I chose specifically these two units because they're at the exact same price, so I wanted to monitor the tone qualities between this and the UA Dream. And I don't know how other profilers work because I'm not super knowledgeable yet, but with the software, being able to steal other people's captures, that just takes it to a whole nother level. Now with this kind of unit, like I was saying before, just having the plug and play option, just being able to plug in, I think the upside of having a unit like an amp modeler is there's never really a learning curve that comes with this. I think a lot of people, like I said, with the profiler don't want to spend the time to just getting the capture, and I think it can be great, but you do have that learning curve if you've never used a profiler before or even used a specific unit. Whereas with the UA Dream, it doesn't give you those infinite options, but what it does is it tells you we're emulating a specific amp, like I said before, and we're gonna do it the best. Just like kind of with the virtual versus analog thing, I was pretty shocked at how close the three sounded individually, especially when I would just A-B-C them and try and guess like 2 feet away from my speakers. Like the Princeton capture was really good. And when you're talking about anything specifically like this unit, like any of the big profiling units that people have, I'm very intrigued with the capabilities of using different amps in a different song. Like if you were in a live setting, would you like be on rhythm on one instead of like cranking a tube screamer, opting to just bring one specific unit and then using a completely different amp like a Marshall capture or something like that on the next setting to really get it cranked. It would be like almost a completely new performance or a completely new song. But let me know what differences you heard and let me know what you think if you thought either of them got closer to the Princeton sound. But like I was saying, both units have their pros, both have their cons, depending on if you want to call them those. It just depends what's right for you. Let me know in the comments. Are you looking more to be a modeling person or profiling person? But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. It's so interesting to be able to review the two and just see like how many different tones or different styles I could possibly try and get out of them individually, especially with the profiling just being my first time ever trying it. If you liked any of the gear in this video, I got both the modeler and the profiler. You can get them both at Sweetwater. It's one of the best ways to support the channel if that's something you want to do, or if you're just curious about any of these amps or any of the gear used in this video, make sure to check out the link in the description. Also, thanks IK Multimedia, because I definitely got those Moto drums going in the backing track. Like and subscribe if you had a good time, and most important of all, have a fantastic day.